Alright y'all, so today we're getting a little bit scientific and doing a camera comparison. So right now I have mounted on my head a GoPro. It's a GoPro 3 Plus Silver and a Sony ASV100, or no, AS100V. Yeah, that's it. So anyways, I wanted to show these cameras back to back and give you what little feedback I've had in using both of them, because I know a lot of people compare these two cameras. The GoPro, you know, it's not the current model, it's a previous model. They have a comparable model out though, and both of these cameras right now are shooting at 1080p at 60 frames per second. And so it's about as even as a comparison as I could get it to be. And I wanted to just kind of do a little ride and have them both up so you can look at the quality as best as you can on compressed video on the tube views and make some judgments for yourself. So let's see. So the biggest thing I noticed difference-wise is the color profile, the default color profile, and let's talk about that first because I think that trips up a lot of people in making their decisions. So when you're looking at the AS100V's footage, most of the time you'll notice it looks more vivid. I noticed that especially on Motovloggers, they pop that camera in there and it has really vivid footage. And if you look at the color profile on the camera, it's got two. One is normal, one is vivid, and the default is vivid. And I think Sony's trying to play a little bit of a trick on us here, and lots of cameras do this, and lots of televisions do this too. If you go and look at televisions in the store, they tend to put more red in the picture. Make it a warmer picture because that makes people more likely to buy that television. And the default profile on the Sony camera is vivid. So right now that's turned off. I'm going to go turn it on to vivid here in a second so you can see what that looks like. But just GoPro default color profile compared to Sony's normal color profile, this is what it looks like. Alright, so here's the exact same shot we just did, only this time the Sony is in vivid mode for its color profile. And usually when I'm seeing comparisons of these cameras on YouTube, that's what I'm noticing is really just a difference in color profile, which I don't think is all that relevant. I mean, if you really like the color profile on the Sony, and I do, then, you know, it's one less thing you have to do in post is to change a color profile, but you can do that. So here's the GoPro with a different color profile done and posted. In fact, we'll just go back and we'll do that exact same scene, and I'll do the GoPro with the color profile somewhat similar to the Sony's color profile, only applied in post-editing. And usually when I'm seeing comparisons of these cameras on YouTube, that's what I'm noticing is really just a difference in color profile, which I don't think is all that relevant. I mean, if you really like the color profile on the Sony, and I do, then, you know, it's one less thing you have to do in post is to change a color profile, but you can do that. So here's the GoPro with a different color profile done and posted. In fact, we'll just go back and we'll do that exact same scene, and I'll do the GoPro with the color profile somewhat similar to the Sony's color profile, only applied in post-editing. And usually when I'm seeing comparisons of these cameras on YouTube, that's what I'm noticing is really just a difference in color profile, which I don't think is all that relevant. I mean, if you really like the color profile on the Sony, and I do, then, you know, it's one less thing you have to do in post is to change a color profile. And usually when I'm seeing comparisons of these cameras on YouTube, that's what I'm noticing is really just a difference in color profile, which I don't think is all that relevant. I mean, if you really like the color profile on the Sony, and I do, then, you know, it's one less thing you have to do in post is to change a color profile. Y'all ever have deja vu? Alright, so I'm going to pull over up here and I'm going to put the Sony back over to its normal color profile, and we'll do a little bit more review and maybe a little bit more experimenting. Alright, so now the Sony's back in a normal color profile, not the default, but normal. And I'm going to take a picture with my really good point and shoot so that y'all can kind of see what that looks like, because this has got a much better sensor and a much better lens than either of these cameras. So maybe that'll give us some kind of a baseline for accuracy. So bottom line is, as far as color goes, I don't know that the GoPro is less accurate. In fact, I think the GoPro is more accurate if you're comparing default to default. If you're comparing the non-default normal setting on the Sony to the GoPro's default setting, then I don't know. I'll have to find out when I look at this footage with you guys. So let's see, what else? Let's see, what do I like better about the Sony? It can do 120 frames per second, but only at 720p. And the GoPro I'm using right now cannot do that. There are GoPros that can, but they cost more money. These two cameras cost about the same. The lens on the Sony is a better lens, and the sensor, I think, is a better sensor. So if you're looking at the raw footage, then the Sony can one-up that GoPro. However, you know, if you're posting videos to YouTube and that's the main thing you're using these for, it gets compressed and you kind of lose that slight difference in quality. The audio is a little bit different. I haven't done much experimenting with the external microphones, but even with a mic plugged into both cameras, it seems like the Sony amplifies my mic a little bit. I actually prefer the GoPro's audio in that respect, because you know, on the Sony I hear a lot more of my breathing and panting and external noises that I don't really want to hear unless of my voice. But you wouldn't notice unless you're listening to it back to back, really. And by the way, the audio right now is all the audio for this video is coming from the GoPro. The jack on the microphone jack on the Sony is a standard microphone jack, whereas the GoPro you have to have a dongle. That doesn't bother me so much, but if you need to get a right angle coming out of that GoPro, it's kind of tricky to do. Whereas the Sony, you can just get a right angle microphone jack and pop it in there. However, the microphone jack on the Sony is in a stupid spot, and it makes it kind of hard to helmet mount it, which is important if you're doing motorcycle videos. If you're not doing motorcycle videos, then you know, it's a much tougher comparison. But we're not going to get into that here. I got another video coming out in a week or two where I'm going to talk about mounting the Sony onto a helmet and show you what all I did there to do this. And we'll go in there about the form factors of the two cameras and why I like one better than the other based purely on form factor. So form factor aside, though, it's a tough comparison. You know, if you're doing just action videos and the actual helmet mounting is not an issue for you, then if it's going to be kind of more cinematic and you're going to be actually having something closer to your raw footage, then I do think the Sony might be a little bit better quality. If you're really doing action stuff and you're going to be like snowboarding or skateboarding or riding a motorcycle, then I kind of feel like the GoPro is a little bit more up to the task of being beat around in an action video. Now, one feature that the Sony has that the GoPro doesn't, that a lot of people might be interested in, is the steady shot. I don't have it enabled right now, and I'm not going to for this video. But the steady shot on that Sony is pretty dang good. You can do that also in post-edit, but I hadn't seen any software make a steady shot post that looked as good as Sony does it real time. So I don't like it when I'm doing action stuff and I'm riding motorcycles. I think the action looks faster whenever you don't have the steady shot on, and if you have the handlebars or your helmet in the frame, then it just gets weird. But if you have a camera, say, top mounted, where everything in the frame is just the landscape, and you want a more cinematic effect, that steady shot's pretty cool. So one other little thing that the Sony has, it's kind of a big deal, is has GPS. And I hadn't seen too many motovloggers using the GPS on the Sony, but it's there. So if you know, forget where you were, or in my case, if you never knew where you were when you shot the video, then You can get the GPS coordinates out of there for it, and you can also get some other telemetry. Ned, just put up just the Sony so people can see. That's annoying having to look at a split window when we're talking about something that's only in one side of the screen. There you go. All right, so yeah, so you can put up some extra information if you want, but like I said, I don't see too many people doing it. I'm not sure why. I'd kind of like to know, like, you know, altitude where I ride, because it varies quite a bit, and sometimes I'd like to know speed. Like if I'm getting on the highway and I want to show somebody that yes, a WR250R can go 70 miles per hour down the highway and not be whining out, then this is one way to do it, right? So really, I don't think you can go wrong. I do find that there's more sales on the Sony. The GoPro, this one's MSRP was $300, and I think I got it for $250, and I looked really hard for a sale for a long time. The Sony, its MSRP is also $300, and I saw it for a one-day sale for $150, and I picked it up for that. But really, like, what you're mounting it to, how you're mounting it, probably means more in this comparison, and then how you're distributing the actual video. If it's just going over the two views, then you're going to lose so much quality. You shouldn't be fretting too much over quality. Alright, well, let's get one more pretty shot for y'all before I wrap this video up. I know this hasn't been like the most comprehensive comparison. I mainly just wanted to get some footage out there on the two views, because I know I had a hard time finding it when I was trying to compare. And I'll put some links down in the description of some other videos. I know eveRide did some comparisons of some GoPros and Sonys, and I'll put his links in the description if you want to check out that stuff. And also, eventually I'll have a link to my next video, which is going to be the helmet setup, how I got this thing put onto my helmet the way I wanted to, and how I basically re-engineered a case so that I could have the microphone jack accessible and the lens protected at the same time. So, alright, y'all have a good week. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to make another video if somebody has a good idea for a comparison video of these cameras. And I'll catch you later. Over and out.